Thank you so much, Rolly. That was quite an introduction. And thanks to you and to Becca for the invitation to be here to share some Torah with you this Shabbat. It's been quite a week, and in difficult times, in all times, it's natural to want to see ahead to the future, to be able to look around the corner or peek around the bend in the road, to skip to the end of the chapter or the last page of the book. It's hard to tolerate not knowing what's next. Low-grade worry until we get the test results, with a little catastrophizing for good measure. Patience, savlanut, is one of the hardest midot, the traits to develop and sustain, right alongside trust, bitachon. How are we supposed to just sit back and wait and trust, have faith that it will turn out okay? In Parashat Shelah, Moshe sends spies or scouts into the land of Canaan to see what's in store for the Israelites. Shlach Lekha anashim vayaturu et eretz Canaan, send agents, spies, to scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelite people. Why Shlach Lekha and not just Shlach? Send for you. Who is it for? The rabbis read a tremendous amount of ambivalence into this one word, into this choice to send the spies. Midrash Tanchuma says, Afal pi she'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe shlach lecha anashim, lo hayta min HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheyishlachu. Even though the Holy One of Blessing had said to Moshe, send people for yourself, it was not the wish of the Holy One for them to go. Why? Because God had already told them how wonderful the land was, more than once. But rather than believe in God's multiple assurances, not to mention the trouble God was taking to shepherd them into the land by pillars of fire and cloud and providing them with manna, the people wanted to check for themselves. They said, and we read in Devarim, let us send people ahead of us. So God and Moshe are faced with a leadership challenge. The Holy One of Blessing said, the Midrash continues, if I prevent them from sending the spies, they will say the land is no good. That's why God hasn't shown it to us. And Moshe also began to wonder. But he said, it's impossible for me to do something like this before I consult with the Holy One. So Moshe went and consulted, said to God, your children want this. And the Holy One said to him, this is not the first time. I know what they're saying, but if you want to do it, you do it. Send the spies for yourself. It's hard to know what to do in moments of great fear and uncertainty. Even great leaders stumble and hesitate when so much is at stake. And lesser leaders? There have been many moments in the last 2 weeks and the last 2 years where I wished I could peek ahead for some reassurance that it would all turn out okay. I have felt afraid a lot. All week, I've been thinking about the beautiful words of Torah that Rabbi Yael Splansky shared last week on this bima, on the phrase, Al tira'u, do not be afraid, the most repeated commandment in the Tanakh. Classical Jewish text analysis would have us ask the question, what is the problem being addressed by the repetition of this verse? Why would the words, "do not be afraid," be repeated so often in our sacred texts? It must be because we are afraid a lot. And as any parent or friend or therapist or rabbi knows, telling someone in great distress, "don't be afraid," is really not so useful. It sounds a lot like swallow your feelings, pretend you're fine. I don't think that is the message our text is repeating for us. I think what Al Tira really means is don't let your fear overcome you. Are we switching? Better? Yes, okay. I think what Al Tira really means is don't let your fear overcome you. Don't let your fears crowd out your ability to know that you are not alone and that there is room for hope. Don't let your fears paralyze you or let them grow into scarcity, despair, and inaction. Moshe tells the spies to check out the land and tell him if it's good or bad, open or fortified, fertile or lean. And they do. This is what they told him. "We came to the land you sent us to, and it does indeed flow with milk and honey. Gam zavat chalav udvash hi, and this is its fruit. Efes ki az ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz." But the people who inhabit the country are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. And moreover, we saw giants there. Ramban, Nachmanides, explains that the 10 spies did what they were commanded to do. They answered the questions. Milk and honey, check. Fruit, check. V'hine b'chol zeh amru emet. They told the truth in all of this and gave a report about the matters which they had been commanded to find out. So it would have been appropriate for them to report that the people were fierce and the cities were fortified. They were asked to do that. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the word efes. The word they used for however, or nevertheless, or but, is efes, literally nothing, zero. Shehi mora al davar efes, v'nimna min ha'adam she'i efshar b'shum inyan. Efes signifies something negative and beyond human capability, something impossible of achievement under any circumstances. All of the bounty and beauty of the land is erased in their eyes by the obstacles, is wiped out by the fear. The spies told Moshe that the land is fertile and surely it flows with milk and honey and the fruits are good, but it is impossible to fight. So why even bother? Kalev tries to push back. Vayomer alo na'aleh. Kalev tries to quiet the people before Moshe and says, let's try it. Let's by all means go up and we shall gain possession of it. We shall surely overcome it. But the fear and the despair of the other 10 spies is so strong, and it's contagious. V'sham ra'inu et hanefilim, v'nehi be'einenu kechagavim, v'chein ha'inu be'enehem. We saw Nephilim there, giants, and we looked like grasshoppers to ourselves, and so we must have looked to them. I don't know about you, but I felt like a grasshopper for a lot of this week. And I imagine that there are a lot of divrei Torah about grasshoppers this Shabbat. Last Shabbat, we left Sivan's beautiful bat mitzvah, and some of us walked up to our little neighborhood No Kings gathering, and 30 or 40 of us held signs and sang and chanted in the rain for about an hour. And it was nice to be together, and it was hard not to feel like a grasshopper, especially with the ICE raids and Supreme Court decisions the rest of the week, not to mention a brick thrown through the window of a kosher grocery store in Brookline, Massachusetts. I spent so much of this week, as I'm sure many of you did, sick with fear for my family and friends in Israel. My cousin, on her way home from a peace conference in Paris, stuck in Athens for a week, trying to get home to her kids in Jerusalem. My students in Israel for the summer, including Joe, who you know and love, and Ileana, who soon you will know and love, racing to shelters, feeling ready to go home with no clear way out, aching to go and be there with them, and terrified by the breaches of Israeli defense for the people in Israel who are not protected by shelters and defensive missile systems, and the suffering of the hostages and the civilians in Gaza and people in the West Bank that continues and intensifies while many of us are looking elsewhere. I felt grateful on the one hand if Iranian nuclear capabilities can really be diminished, and so scared about what is next in this escalating conflict. And these world leaders, we can't make the missiles stop. We can't make the passenger planes fly, and it's hard to know even how to help. Knowing that there is nothing concrete we can do, we feel like grasshoppers. Midrash doesn't blame the spies for being afraid, but it cannot accept their posture of despair, their insistence on seeing the worst and only the worst. Midrash Tanchuma describes the spies exploring the land, which they did with surprising ease, considering the formidable way they describe the inhabitants. Ketzad, how? When they entered a town, a pestilence affected the nobility, and the people of the town were busy with burial, so that when they entered, nobody noticed them. For this reason, they said, the land through which we passed is Eretz Ochelet Yoshveha, a land that devours its inhabitants. It was through the very miracles that the Holy One of Blessing did for them that they spread slander. This is the ancient version of a social media account that only tells the worst version of anything and erases everything that doesn't fit with the narrative. This is what happens when we see ourselves like grasshoppers and succumb to that fear, when we feel that everything we do is futile. According to Midrash, the Holy One forgave the spies for seeing themselves as grasshoppers, as we all do from time to time. They said we were grasshoppers in our eyes, and the Holy One of Blessing said, I forgive them for this. And likewise, we were in their eyes. And God said, do you know what I made you look like in their eyes? Who is to say that you were not like angels in their eyes? Ma garamtem la'atzmechem. What have you done to yourselves? The real failing of the spies was being so certain that they were seen by others as grasshoppers, that they gave up. They didn't even try, and they sowed fear and despair among their people. While the most repeated phrase in Tanakh is Al Tira'u, don't be afraid, the most repeated commandment in Torah is love the stranger, because we were strangers in Egypt. This is the opposite of fear-driven inaction and despair. It's the opposite of a scarcity mentality of, I distrust everyone and I assume the worst about everyone. Or, if your commitment to Israel isn't exactly the same as mine, it's not real. Or if your commitment to human rights isn't exactly the same as mine, it's not real. Or I'm not going to bother speaking up now because things are just going to get worse. Or I won't stand up for someone else because they might not stand up for me. As Rolly said, June is Pride Month. And while we are seeing a dismantling of LGBT rights and protections in this country, especially with respect to access to health care for transgender youth, there is much to celebrate, and there is much to fight for. We might feel like grasshoppers alone on our bad days, but let's not forget that a horde of grasshoppers, or maybe locusts, is part of what brought down Pharaoh in Egypt. It is worth it to go out in the rain, to the protest, or to make that call to check in on your loved ones in Israel, because together we become powerful. And all of us friendly grasshoppers with our colorful signs looked much more powerful than an ill-advised military parade. So as you heard, I served for many years as a rabbi at Congregation Beit Simchat Torah, and you'll hear more next week about the ways in which BJ and Rolly and Marshall were the first and often the only shul and rabbis to offer support to CBST in the early and terrible days of the AIDS crisis, before CBST hired its first rabbi, my teacher, Sharon Kleinbaum, who will be speaking from this bima next Shabbat. When I first came to CBST as a rabbinical student intern, a straight student at JTS, I was worried that they wouldn't want me, coming from a rabbinical school that at the time did not admit or ordain openly gay or lesbian rabbis. But what I learned was the power of being an ally, about what it means to show up for other people, to decenter yourself and your experience, and to be present for the celebrations and the struggles of others. Ve'ahavtem et hager, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. Love the stranger, the one whose experience is other, is different from your own. Look into your history, into your family history, into our people's history, and figure out what you care about, who you care about, and show up, even if it's scary, because they're scared too. This is a time we all need allies. Some of us are more vulnerable, and some of us are less vulnerable, and all of us need one another. We cannot see ahead to what will happen in the future. We can stand together so that even when we are grasshoppers in our own eyes, we can be angels in each other's eyes and in the eyes of the Holy One. This is how, as Caleb foresees, we can rise up. Alo na'aleh ki yachol nuchal. Because it is possible. This is how we move through the fear to taste the sweetness of the honey. כן יהי רצון.